Hey guys, what's up? It's Cameron. Today's video is going to be different than any other video I have done in the past, and today I'm going to be talking about the college interview process. So I kind of mentioned it in one of the videos in the past. I said I was applying to Harvard and Penn for this upcoming school year, and since then I've finished the application. All of the process is complete, so now I'm just waiting to hear back from the school, so I have everything done. So now I can kind of just share with you pretty much a big thing that a lot of people worry about all the time for really not just Ivy League interviews, but all college interviews in general. And I actually tried making this video separately for the Penn interview. I started it off and I just, looking back, I really just didn't like it. It seemed so random and jumbled up, and I was recording before I went, and you could just tell I was nervous, and altogether I was just like, no, this isn't good enough. Then I was going to make one separately for the Harvard interview, but then looking back, they are somewhat similar, so I'm just gonna kind of combine them all into one video, which is this. So now, enough talking about videos that could have been, let's talk about this video. So a couple weeks after I finished my application for Harvard and Penn, I got an email from an alumni, and they're just people in the town that went to that school and now are just helping out with the admissions process. All they do is interview you, and they just type up a letter usually and send that into the admissions office. They don't really have too much of an impact, luckily, which could go either way, because if you have a great interview, you really want that to help you in the process. But then again, if you feel like it doesn't go as well as planned, it's good that it doesn't matter that much. But the two interviews were very different feels. The structure of the interview was very similar, but the interview itself, kind of two different vibes. So for the Penn one, I met in a Starbucks in my town, near Waterside. The Starbucks in Waterside Shops, if you know Naples, Florida. Great location in a great outdoor mall type setting, just to sit and talk. So that was a little bit more casual. That interview was really enjoyable, really casual. We were just talking. It's not like he's sitting there with a piece of paper just listing off questions for you. It's just really just a conversation. And yeah, there is some structure to it. I mean, they do kind of need to know about your grades and your habits and things like that, but it's just a great conversation. So the Harvard one, I met in my interviewer's his office on a Saturday morning. So it was just a little bit intimidating, going to his office. It's just me and him there. It's not like meeting in Starbucks. There's all these people around you, and just like a nice, relaxed situation in the office. We actually met in the conference room. So a little intimidating there, just because of the setting, but altogether the conversation was pretty similar. For both schools, they really want to know what you're like, what your interests are, what your accomplishments are. So you do kind of want to be able to brag about yourself in that situation. You want to know what you've done and be able to explain what you've done well. That was one of the things for me. I've done a lot of things, but just explaining kind of the significance of each of those things is a little bit challenging at some points, and just really remembering all that I've done, because it's easy to get caught up on one or two things that you think really set you apart, but it's important to remember all that you've done throughout high school and your life, so you can talk about as much as possible with them, really. And then another tip I would give you is have a little bit of prior knowledge of the school before going into that interview, because I'll get into it later, but they're going to kind of ask you questions about their school in particular, what major you're interested in going into, have you ever visited that school, things like that. So definitely do some, most likely you'll know the basics of the school, the location, things like that, but if not, definitely research it. And for me, for Harvard and Penn, I researched the undergraduate degrees and majors just so I could kind of pick it out, so I had already a plan going into the interview. And another big thing that I kind of told some of my friends, which was big, is to come prepared with questions. So most of the interview is them asking you questions, but then the end is pretty much dedicated to you asking them questions. So they really kind of expect you to have questions prepared in your mind. For the Harvard one, I came a little bit more prepared. I had a folder, so I had 10 or so questions written down already, and he was pretty impressed by that. So just basic questions about the university, but you don't want to ask things that you could easily look up online. You want things that are unique and that you really want to hear from them. So good, like, first-hand perspective questions. So for example, I said, what was the biggest adjustment for you going to Harvard versus, you know, your high school career? And that's just a good question. It allows them to talk, it allows them to feel special, feel like they're really giving you good information, and it is good information. You know, both interviews, I felt like I learned so much from them, and it was really just an honor to meet them, and it was great, a great experience, and I feel like it helps me just with my social skills and, you know, interview skills and things like that, which will help me immensely later on in life. So definitely come prepared with questions, but if you just look up anything on the internet, it will tell you you should come prepared with questions. So definitely have at least 5 or so in mind going into the interview, and then just along the course of the interview itself, the person might say something and that triggers something in your mind, which will then lead to you asking a question about that. So things like, you know, because you want to still have a conversation with them. You don't want to make it all just strictly business. You want them to like you, and so kind of if they allude to something in their personal life from their experience at that school, you know, kind of ask them to delve more into it, so you can kind of just see what the real experience is like. And I left both interviews really, I felt like I knew so much about the school that I wouldn't have ever known otherwise if I hadn't gone to an interview. And yes, the interview process is pretty daunting just because, you know, you're like, oh shoot, I actually have to do this. When I first got the email, I was like, oh snap. I was kind of hoping I wouldn't have to meet with anyone and I could just wait on the decision. But no, I got the email and emailed a couple of times back and forth because I have a really busy schedule. They had busy schedules, so just finding the time was pretty confusing, but good conversation there, and I'm just so thankful I did it. It wasn't mandatory, but I mean, it would kind of look bad if you just never, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know where I was interrupted. But yeah, just you want to be as open to the interview as possible because it's not gonna hurt you at all whatsoever. I mean, they want you to get into that school. My interviewer for Harvard, he said, each year I try to get as many people from the Southwest Florida area into Harvard as possible. So he wants you to do well. And remember, they want the interview to go well too, just as much as you do. And, you know, that's kind of one of the things I was thinking. I was like, you know what, are they going to be tricking me? Am I really Ivy League material? I don't know, this and that. But really, they want the interview to go just as well as you do. Because, you know, no one likes having an awkward conversation. And, you know, luckily for me, I'm decent at talking. You might think otherwise watching this video, but I like having conversations, so it really went well for me. And just leaving both of the interviews, I felt like $1 million. I felt like I could conquer the world, and it was such a great feeling. And even if I don't get into the schools, it was still just a great experience, and I felt like I learned so much, and I can use what I learned later on in life. So if you guys have any other questions, please let me know, and I'll definitely let you guys know what happens with the decisions. And no, because I'm wearing the FGCU shirt does not mean I'm going to FGCU. I didn't even apply there. This is just for basketball. But last night, in case you were wondering, I did get accepted to the University of Florida, which is currently the #9 public school in the nation, which is awesome. I'm thrilled about that. But that's about it. Thank you for watching this video. I know it's a little bit different than some of the things I've done in the past, but I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned some things, and yeah, so peace.